Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Thanks for watching on SIFTD if you're a subscriber. If you're watching on YouTube, I have two favors to ask you. One is, if you're a Prime member, link your Twitch account with your Prime account and then go to the SIFTD channel and we'll walk you through how to subscribe. It costs nothing and it causes Twitch to pay SIFTD $2.50. Going forward, once you've done that, all you have to do is click one button on your Twitch account and it will resubscribe. Every time you do that, Shane gets $2.50. Appreciate it if you can do that. That supports our efforts. I get nothing, but it allows Shane to stay in business, and as long as he's in business, we will do Pachter Factor. If you can't do any of that because you're not a Prime member, I get it, then at a minimum, you got to follow all of us on Twitter, at Michael Pachter, please, 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 at Dinfire is Shane, at SIFTD Games is SIFTD, and you will at least be up to speed on what we're thinking. Our first question this week from SIFTD, from Blazon. What's your take on game developers taking a stance on social issues in their game? Isn't it always going to result in upsetting a large number of people? From a business perspective, shouldn't they just avoid social commentary altogether? Something in the news, Willie Nelson fans are pissed because weed-smoking Willie Nelson, who's always been, a champion of social justice and never shied away from being outspoken in favor of homelessness or farm aid or something that's good for other people, is doing a benefit concert for Beto O'Rourke in Texas, who's running against Ted Cruz. Okay, so he's taken a stand. He's doing something voluntary to help a Democrat, and country music fans who are probably more heavily skewed Republican are pissed. Well, I think I'm going to turn your question upside down, okay? If you're a fan of art, of an artist, why do you care what the artist thinks? I mean, if you like their art, who cares if they agree with you on every social issue? And the answer is going to be almost never are you going to find an artist that completely agrees with you up and down the line. But the fact is, if you like music or games or movies, the vast majority of people in the creative industries are Democrats. And that is what it is. So your question is, I have views, the consumer, and I want everybody that I love, their creative juices, to either agree with me or shut the fuck up. Okay, great. You know what? Deal with it. I'm sorry. The idea that you don't want your enjoyment of their art interrupted by their political views, well, then don't listen to them. Listen to people who are namby-pamby and never allow their political views to be known. That's cool. There are plenty of people like that. So your question, I think, is, does it make better business sense for artists just to be neutral and say nothing? Yes. But most artists have very strong beliefs about something. It might be climate change. Some guys use their celebrity as a platform to be vocal about things that matter to them. And if you don't like it, don't follow them. So the answer is, I actually believe that you're right, that from a business perspective, everybody should avoid social commentary completely. Because from a business perspective, you're gonna have more fans if you never comment on anything, and you allow your fans to project their own beliefs onto you. And some people think that's fine, and that's why you have a lot of artists who don't take a position on anything. And some people don't think that's fine as artists because they think that they have a platform and they should be vocal and they should stand for something. I gotta say, one thing I really love about the US, I can't say this is true of all other countries, is we have the First Amendment and you're allowed to say whatever you want to say. And if you want to, say you believe in climate change and that you think that's an important issue, you're allowed to. And the consequence is you just don't buy that person's games or albums or movies, and that's your prerogative as well. So yes, from a business perspective, no one should ever say what they believe. From a social perspective, I think it's really wonderful that high-profile celebrities have a view. So you have the Colin Kaepernick controversy right now, where Kaepernick takes a knee, or did when he was a professional athlete, during the national anthem. there's two ways to view that. He's disrespecting the flag in America, or he's making a statement that, that there's a lot of violence against black people from the police. And you can be on either side of that issue. And Kaepernick got a lot of ire for that and arguably lost his NFL job because of that. We don't know, but he's suing, so we'll see. And Nike took a position. He's a prominent athlete. He's making a prominent stance. They basically said, just do it no matter whether it risks losing your career. And people are coming out on both sides. Burn your Nikes. And a lot of people burn their Nikes. Guess what? Nike online sales went up 31% the week after. Nike stock just hit an all-time high. So on balance, and I'm just giving you an example, there's more people who support what Kaepernick is doing than there are people who hate it. But your question is, if he never did anything, he'd have an NFL job. That's right, he would. If he had never spoken out, if he had never kneeled, if he had just gone with the flow, he would still have a job, and the 49ers or whoever team had him would be doing better, arguably, because they'd have him on their team, and he'd be making more money. But it mattered to him. So he chose to use his celebrity to take a stance and be vocal and make a difference. And people who hate it, and people who love it. So in games, it's kind of the battlefield having women fighting. Some people don't like that, and they say it's not realistic, and I'm like, I don't know. Games suspend disbelief and whatever, don't care. Some people are going to say, I'm not buying Battlefield because there's women, in combat roles. Okay, don't buy it. And some people are going to say, I love that, that's cool. If you're a girl gamer and you want to play as a female character, you can. That's cool. So I don't know, it's your call if you want to make a statement. So I don't know. I think that there's all sorts of stuff in games, but my take is anybody who lives in America should be able to do whatever, should be able to say whatever they want to say, and the consequence of saying it is you might lose business and you might gain business. It just depends if more people support you for saying it or more people hate you for saying it. And that's essentially what's going on with Alex Jones right now. I mean, he's losing revenue because he crossed a line that, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Apple decided crossed the line, and they don't want him on their sites anymore. And he's got, smaller reach because he has political views. So he suffered the consequences of having a view that didn't resonate with those guys. And let's say he's conservative, they're liberal. It cost him. And so should he stop and temper his views? No, he should say what he believes. God bless the First Amendment. And he should suffer the consequences if people don't like it. And if people do like it, they'll find him. Our next question from Patreon from Dart Herv. Hi, Pac. Do you think Amazon or any other large corporation would ever disrupt the video game industry with a big acquisition on the same scale as Whole Foods? Sure. Whole Foods was a $15 billion acquisition. Might have been 14. You can look it up. Take-Two is about 16, 17 billion. Ubisoft is about 13, 14 billion. Those are the size of Whole Foods. EA is about 40. Activision is about 55, 60. So they're much bigger than Whole Foods. Bethesda, I think the ask is about 10. I'd say Bethesda being sold is close to a certainty. The CEO is in his 70s. I think it's his goal to sell the company. They have a big private equity investor, Provident, who I think it's their goal to sell the company. I think the employees there would thrive with a good partnership. So it depends. I think Activision actually makes a lot of sense to buy those guys. But yeah, Amazon I think is a possible partner. Microsoft probably more than Amazon. And the difference between Microsoft and Amazon, they both are giant cloud providers. They both want to do streaming. They both probably look to device agnostic game delivery over time. So Fire TV or Xbox Scarlett slimmed down streaming device. But Microsoft's got a head start in games. So Microsoft I think has a core business that it needs to defend. And so I see them buying somebody before Amazon. Amazon's got just as much money and has a very determined CEO who, once he decides he wants to be in the business, will do it. So I think that it's those two guys that are the likely acquirers. The problem with Microsoft buying anybody is they're unlikely to want to put content on the PlayStation. So it's hard for Microsoft to buy EA because EA's got a lot of licensed content, and I'm sure Disney and the NFL and FIFA wouldn't want to see their properties decline in sales. So it's hard for Microsoft to swallow that kind of transaction. Bethesda all owned IP, they could do it, they could pull it off, so could Amazon. Amazon would probably continue to produce for all the platforms and then would expand the market by going off console. So yeah, I think you're asking a good question. Yes, I think they would consider it. Interestingly, Amazon never made a big acquisition. I think their biggest one was like Audible books before they did Whole Foods, and they were literally looking at like billion-dollar kind of acquisitions. And so doing something for 15 is a lot, but of course Amazon back in the day, their share price was only, or total value was only about 150 billion when they were only doing billion-dollar deals. Their total value is like 800 billion now, so they can afford to start looking at $15 billion deals. So yeah, good question. I think it's likely. I don't know when it's happening, but probably before the end of 2020, you'll see somebody make a move. Next question from SIFTD from Zero Kaiser. Hello, Mr. Pack. I like fighting games and I enjoy watching eSports tournaments, but each time I wonder how these events turn a profit. Can you please explain the business of eSports from the perspective of players, teams, organizers, and publishers? My God, that could take 2 hours. All right, so eSports is a really crappy business, and eSports is like sports. And so if you have an eSport that is analogous to the FIFA World Cup tournament where you get 1 billion viewers, then that'll be a really big eSport. If you have a eSport where the underlying game is the equivalent of curling or women's field hockey, you're going to get like 100,000 viewers if you're lucky. So the money is going to follow the number of eyeballs, and the more in demand your sport, the more you can sell out stadiums, the more you can sell t-shirts, the more you get sponsorships for the event, and the more you get advertising from all the people watching it. So when you think about the NFL as a sport, it generates about $2 billion a year in TV rights fees, and then another, I don't even know how many, 10 billion or something in advertising. And all that is because 100 million people weekly tune into it. So there's lots and lots of people to reach. It's probably more than that. So if you get an esport with 100 million people watching, yeah, it's worth a couple $2 billion in advertising. Think about, Facebook has 1 billion people daily, and Facebook this year I have them doing 55 billion in revenue. So if you can get 1 billion people to watch an esport and daily, then esports could be doing 55 billion. The problem is we can't do that. We don't have games that people really want to watch yet. I think there's a very direct correlation between the number of people who play a game and watch a game. And that probably deviates for games that are sports simulation. They're easier to watch if you understand how basketball works or how football works. You can watch a Madden tournament or an NBA 2K tournament. But I'm not sure that many people really want to watch you, the gamer, manipulate the LeBron character when we can actually watch LeBron in an NBA game. The difference is for games like League of Legends with a couple 100 million active players. There's a couple 100 million people who are interested in watching League of Legends tournaments because they play it and they love to figure out what's going on. With Overwatch, there's only about 30 million people who play it. So you're not going to get likely more than 30 million people watching it. So it really depends. You got to get an esport that lots and lots of people play. The quickest way to that is make the game free to play. The biggest prize pool for the participants in all this is advertising. The reason the NBA gets $1 billion a year, the reason the NFL gets $2 billion a year, the reason FIFA gets more than $2 billion a year is because they advertise on their telecasts. And so, putting these things on the internet, Twitch casting them, the eyeballs are going to drive ads up and ad rates up, and that provides more to split among all the players. The publishers are the ones that are hard because Activision Blizzard think because we made Overwatch and we own it, we should capture 50% of all the revenue from everything that is viewed on Overwatch. That's a hard model because that's going to last until someone comes up with a game that's just as popular as Overwatch and says, we don't need any of it, it's free. And so, do you want to buy an Overwatch franchise? Let's pretend that the 30 million people generate, even 100 million in ad revenue. Activision will take 50 of it. The other 50 is split among, let's say, it's 12, I think they're up to 16 teams, but 12 team owners, so they get 4 million apiece. Are you going to pay $40 million for a franchise for 3 or 4 million in revenue? That's a tough one. I mean, your payback is 10 to 12 years just on the ad revenue. You obviously have to support your team, you have to pay salaries, get them to tournaments, and that you might be making money on ticket sales and merchandising and stuff. But the ad revenue, you need a 10 or 12 year stream to get paid back. What happens if Overwatch isn't popular in 5 years? Which is possible. So you're taking a risk. So I think that model's hard. I think better if you make a free-to-play game, you have hundreds of millions of people watching instead of 30. Your advertising revenue could be 200 or 300 million instead of 100. There's a lot more out there to play with, and the publisher should probably do a license where they get a piece of the revenue. 50% I think is too much, but again, Activision's pulling it off. So I give Activision props for coming up with a business model that they can get a lot of rich guys who want to buy teams to buy into. I'm not sure that's sustainable. We'll find out over time. It really is going to take a breakthrough esport like NFL is to football, or like soccer, FIFA is to soccer, where you have a breakout where everybody wants to watch it. That's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen next week or next year, but somebody's going to come up with the game. So the way that Fortnite captured our imagination and was probably just an accident. I mean, I respect and admire the Epic guys for coming up with it, but it almost seemed like it was proof of Unreal Engine more than anything. There's nobody at Epic who said, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to make 300 million a month. Now they've executed flawlessly, so their happy accident turned into massive profits. Just like the Post-it note was an accident. It was some guy who was making non-stick glue so he could mark passages in his Bible, and he worked at 3M. And they said, oh, we should put that on paper. So if you exploit a great idea, you can make a ton of money. It's going to happen on TV because somebody's going to figure it out, but it hasn't happened yet. Our last question this week from YouTube, from M. Slusark. Hello, Pachter. Do you think the next generation of consoles will be streaming platforms? If so, do you think game developers and console manufacturers will continue to push 4K or HDR gaming? Would it be the first time we will see a downgrade in picture quality as we go into the new generation? Okay. Answer is the next generation will be both. You will have both a set of disk-based regular consoles, all the CPU, GPU, and RAM, GDDR, at the client level. So you're going to get all of the processing power where you are, and that's going to be 4K, God knows how many frames, 240 frames a second, whatever makes it imperceptible that you see everything. And you're going to get streaming devices. And probably you're going to get a third type of console, which might have stripped down processing power. So think old generation Xbox One chipset, Xbox One S. So maybe put an AMD combination graphics card and CPU chip into a Fire TV or an Echo Show or an Amazon Echo Tower or an Apple TV, one of those types of devices, and some DDR RAM so that you can actually process. And that will be old generation, current generation graphics, not a step down. So you'll probably have all three in the next 5 or 6 years. High definition, state of the art, $500 console, a middle level, let's call it $100 console that's just like an Xbox One, but so affordable and so plug and play. It could be a Fire TV stick plugging into your TV, and streaming for anybody who's got a smart TV that will possibly have dumbed down graphics. But we're going to go to 5G. It's impossible to know, but with fiber you can probably stream faster. That's likely going to have more latency built into multiplayer. A lot of guys, EA and Microsoft, claim to have overcome a lot of the latency problems that plagued OnLive. So we're going to find out. I don't know the answer, but I think you're going to get all three ultimately. I think Microsoft's going to do two, a streaming device and a hardcore console. So that's what you're hearing about, the Xbox Scarlet process, two different consoles. I think Amazon's going to come out with streaming and that middle level. And again, I think it's a 2020-ish debut. I'm not sure what year, but 2019 or 2020. I think Apple's going to do something. I think Google's going to do something. I think Microsoft's going to do something. And Apple and Google and possibly Amazon may disguise these things as, Google Home or Apple HomePod or Apple TV or Amazon Echo. So I don't know exactly what they're going to look like, but the answer is no. You get a step up in graphics if you're willing to pay for it. You get equal graphics if you're willing to pay kind of a low price, and you possibly get a step down in graphics if you want it free. But if it's free, I don't think anybody can complain that you get streaming. So you buy the game and you play the game. There's going to be tens of millions of households who want to play FIFA globally. And if all it takes is a smart TV, I don't think they care about graphics. If you can buy the game and you do it that way, that's the solution. So the real question is what happens to content. I just had a long conversation with the COO and CFO, same guy, of Electronic Arts about game streaming, because his view was streaming is going to be a subscription service and the guy with the content wins, and that's why Amazon can never have a streaming subscription. And I pressed back on him and I said, what if Amazon has a streaming service and you pay by the game? I said, so if Amazon says, hey, you want to play FIFA? $60 and you can stream it and play it? Are you, EA, going to say no? And he said, no, of course not. Of course we'll sell it that way. So again, it depends on the model. If the model is, you pay $5 a month or $10 a month and you get games unlimited, that's different from just buying a game. So think iTunes, where you don't need any special equipment to download iTunes and listen to iTunes, versus Xbox, where you're buying a disc or a full game download. It's going to be all of the above. So yeah, iTunes songs are compressed and not quite as rich as songs on a CD, but unless you really care about, HD music, iTunes is usually good enough for a lot of people. Guys who are audiophiles, they buy CDs, they buy albums, they buy, the digital remasters. I mean, they get like the really cool full sound. Some guys like the warmth of vinyl and they buy albums. The game publishers and the game console manufacturers are going to make sure that everybody has a solution, and that's good for publishers because it means more people are buying their games, whether they're buying full games or they're subscribing. So, yep, I think that's where it's going. I think it's good to be a publisher. I think it's good to be a developer because your audience is going to expand, 4 to 10-fold, and you're going to probably sell twice as many copies of everything. And it's good to be a consumer because just like we get with movies, we used to have to go to the movie theater to see them. Now you can watch on TV, you can watch HBO, you can rent a movie, you can VOD, you can stream it. There's a million ways to view films. You can watch them on your phone, your tablet, your TV, your PC, in a theater. It's awesome, and you can get them on demand anytime you want. Who wins in that? The consumer and the guy who has the content. That's it for this week's Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a SIFTD subscriber, thank you. If you're not and you're a Prime subscriber, would you please go to Twitch and link your Prime account to Twitch and then go to the SIFTD channel and we'll walk you through how to subscribe, which gets us $250 per month each time you re-up that. Re-upping is just press a single button, so very easy to do. If you're not on SIFTD.net, if you are not a Prime subscriber, we understand. That's why we're on YouTube for free. All we ask in exchange is follow me on Twitter, please, at Michael Pachter. Follow Shane at Dinfire. Follow SIFTD at SIFTD Games. That's the least you can do. Boost our egos. Follow us on Twitter. Ask all sorts of questions. Criticize my calls. I'm okay with it. And if I have a social justice position on Twitter, I'm fine getting feedback from you.